I'm not quite sure what regulation the IOC could impart on any of these, on any discipline, any sports discipline at all whatsoever, considering that some of the people who are competing, these are people who went through puberty as males. They benefited from the muscle mass, the denser bone structure. I mean, especially for certain sports, the way that, the hip formation, I could go on and on and on, the way that they are structured, which is definitely an absolute biological scientific advantage over women, no matter how much testosterone inhibiting whatever they take. So how does the IOC plan to offset that? I mean, they can't change the rules of science.
No, they can't. In 2003, I was in Duluth, Minnesota, and way back in the paper, they had an article, a very 3-paragraph article saying they're going to allow transgenders in the Olympics. So we started taking it on back then in 2003. And then in 2000, at that time, you had to have sex reassignment surgery and hormone therapy. And now what they do is they have, in 2015, they said they'd do just hormone therapy. And just last Tuesday, now they say they're not going to test at all testosterone. This is very unfair. Women will be displaced in competition. There's no doubt about it.
It's the end of women's sports as we know it. I mean, with some of these individuals, if women had naturally occurring levels of hormones in their body that men who identify as women have in theirs at the time of competition, those biological women would be disqualified, would they not?
Yes, and what you got to remember is that the average for a woman is 2, I don't want to get real scientific, 2 nanomoles of testosterone. And for a men, it's 9 and above. So what they did with intersex and transgender athletes, they allowed them to go to 10. And then what we tried to do is get them to go down to 5. And so what they did last week is eliminate testosterone test altogether. This is like people going in playing darts in the dark. And what's going to happen is these darts are going to start hitting the people that do the policies. I think this is going to come back to bite them big time.
Yeah, I can't imagine not only this does more than change women's sports. I mean, it really, it does disenfranchise women because it's going to be impossible for women to compete like with Laurel Hubbard. Laurel Hubbard took the spot that a woman competitor would have had on that team and ended up going and competing in her place. What I don't understand, Steve, is, when women wanted to do sports, we had our softball leagues, we created our own soccer league, we had our very own league separate from men. We enforced men to try to accommodate, women wanting to play. We had our own leagues and our own competitions, even WNBA. So why is it that you cannot, that transgender athletes will not do the same? I'm curious.
Well, like, for example, I'm probably the only person that's fighting this publicly. I'll never get a Hall of Fame induction no matter what I do. And it's insane. They had 300 scientists in around the world and lobbyists and lawyers and all this stuff influencing the Olympic Committee. And they were trying to say that it's not scientific, that in other words, what I was saying was not scientific. But what they don't realize is what they're doing is they're putting women in a different category now, because what they're going to do is have men beating women. And the strangest thing is the Olympic Committee said that they will no longer disclose who's transgender. So you may not even know. In 2016, I tried to sue the International Olympic Committee to stop the race in 800 meters. I knew that there's 3 intersex athletes in that race, and I was laughed at. The lawyers wouldn't take it on because they didn't have a vested interest. What happened was the intersex athletes in 2016, 800 meters, won gold, silver, and bronze. The women were back crying. They knew they were defeated.
Wow.
And it's a shame.
It is, and especially, and as we mentioned a little earlier, it's not like these are individuals who at a young age, which this is not a statement on acceptability of it at all, but it's not as though these individuals at a young age before they went into puberty decided to stop the maturation of themselves as their biological sex. I mean, these are people, like in the case of Laurel Hubbard, this is a grown man who competed as a man and was a man for quite a long time before only just recently deciding to identify as female. That benefit of the density of bone structure, the muscle mass, the way that his hips are set, it gives him an amazing advantage over any other female competitor, and that's just weightlifting. I mean, when you look at track and field, when you look at wrestling, I mean, my goodness, mixed martial arts, which is a sport that I follow, and thankfully UFC hasn't allowed Phelan Fox to go in and beat women in the octagon. I mean, these are all, and Steve, and you've spoken about this, and it's crazy to me that the IOC does not recognize this. So I think the question is, how can this be fair sports that people can even get into anymore, knowing that it's actually unfair and they're not being transparent and it's an unleveled playing field?
Well, what they tried to do, remember 2015, they said that they were going to do hormone therapy for a year and then the athletes could compete. But the problem with that is you cannot reverse the lung capacity, the bone density, the length of the bones, the muscle structure are set by puberty. Now you have people trying to go into the 12, 13-year-olds and down and trying to change that. I sat with Bruce Jenner in 1976 when he set the record in Des Moines, Iowa at the Drake Relays. There were 10 of us sitting with his first wife. And I tell you, I saw that guy perform. He had everything, the looks, the athletic skill, the ability. And then to see him go into what he did, and they used him as an advocate. And the Olympic Committee in 2003, when I was fighting it, they used it as advocacy. What they did is they passed that so that the high school associations would accept that. And this is what you're seeing. Women are different from men. And no matter what you say, I had Rasmussen do a poll, and they said that 27% of the people supported transgender athletes. Even liberal Democrats know that this is woke, if you can believe that.